Ever wonder if December 25th is really the day Jesus was born?
Interesting question.
Let's dive deep into the Bible. Do a little historical detective work.
Sounds like fun.
Our source material for this deep dive is a YouTube video.
Okay.
It's called The True Date. Jesus was born Sephora 7, Hidden Biblical Clues. And it's from the channel The Power of the Word.
Interesting.
We'll be looking at 7 biblical clues.
7.
Yeah, to try to piece together a more accurate date.
Wrong.
Like detectives solving a historical mystery.
I like it.
So the Bible doesn't actually confirm December 25th.
It doesn't.
Oop.
Huh.
Oop.
Well, what's fascinating is that the Bible can provide historical insights.
Right.
Not just, religious teachings.
Okay, so let's jump into clue number 1.
Okay.
This is the census that brought Joseph and Mary to Bethlehem.
Right.
It's mentioned in the Gospel of Luke.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about how complex a census would have been back then.
Yeah.
Especially in Judea.
Oh, yeah.
Traveling, record keeping, coordinating tons of people. It was a massive undertaking.
Absolutely.
And the Romans were known for their efficiency, right?
Yeah.
So they would have chosen the worst possible time to conduct such an operation.
For sure.
So why would the Romans choose to conduct a census during the middle of winter?
Right.
It seems like it would have been incredibly difficult.
Judean winters are harsh, cold, rainy, making travel really difficult and potentially dangerous.
Yeah.
They likely would have opted for a milder season,
Okay.
like spring or fall.
So December seems unlikely right from the start.
Yeah.
Okay, so clue number 1 already has us moving away from the traditional December timeframe.
Yeah.
So what's the next piece of this puzzle?
Clue number 2 involves John the Baptist's father.
Oh,
Okay.
Zechariah.
Wait, how does John the Baptist factor into Jesus' birth date?
It's all about timing.
Okay.
See, we can pinpoint Zechariah's service as a priest in the temple to around May or June.
And it was during this time that the angel Gabriel appeared to him, announcing John the Baptist's upcoming birth.
Okay, and John the Baptist was Jesus' cousin.
Right. Yeah.
His birth was a sign that Jesus' arrival was near.
Okay.
The Gospel of Luke specifically states that Mary was visited by Gabriel 6 months after John the Baptist was conceived
Okay.
and told she would give birth to Jesus.
If we do the math, that places Jesus' conception around November or December.
Right?
Which means a potential birth date in September or October.
Precisely.
Okay.
It's an estimated time frame, but it aligns with significant events in the Jewish calendar.
I mean, like Jewish festivals.
Yes, specifically the Feast of Tabernacles,
Okay.
which takes place in the fall. It's a celebration of God's presence among his people.
And Jesus is often referred to as Emmanuel, meaning God with us, right?
Right.
Could Jesus, who embodies God's presence among humanity, have been born during this symbolic festival?
It's a pretty thought-provoking idea. So clue number 3 builds on the second, suggesting that Jesus' birth might align with important Jewish festivals.
Right.
What's interesting is that other pivotal events in Jesus' life, like his death and the coming of the Holy Spirit, align with Jewish festivals like Passover and Pentecost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If we apply that same logic to his birth, it adds weight to the idea that it might have occurred during a significant festival like the Feast of Tabernacles.
Okay.
Now, clue number 4 might seem insignificant,
Okay.
but it provides some additional insights.
Okay.
It's about the shepherds watching their flocks at night when Jesus was born.
We see this image so much in Christmas narratives
Yeah.
that we almost take it for granted, but how does that detail help us with the date?
Remember those harsh Judean winters?
Yeah.
It's doubtful shepherds would be out with their sheep in open fields during December.
Oh, yeah.
Especially at night.
That makes a winter birth seem pretty unlikely.
Right.
Okay.
It further supports the possibility of a birth during a milder time, spring, summer, or fall.
Okay. Clue number 5 brings us to the heavens. The Star of Bethlehem, the celestial guide that led the Magi to Jesus. There are so many theories about it.
Yeah.
Was it a real astronomical event or something supernatural?
Right?
What do you think?
Well, it's definitely captured people's imaginations for centuries.
Yeah.
One theory suggests it was a planetary conjunction
Okay.
with Jupiter and Saturn aligning in the sky.
Right.
And that conjunction occurred in 7 BC, fitting within the potential time frame we've been looking at.
Okay, I've also heard about the theory that it was a nova or a supernova.
Yes, that's another possibility.
Yeah.
Although there aren't any historical records confirming a supernova during that period, some have even considered a comet,
Yeah.
but it probably wasn't that,
Okay.
since comets were associated with negative omens at the time.
So we still don't know for sure what the star was.
We may never know for sure.
Right.
But the important thing is that the star had a very specific purpose to guide the Magi to Jesus.
It's amazing to think about how the heavens played a role in this earthly event. But let's move on to clue number 6.
Okay.
A much darker piece of this story.
Okay.
King Herod and the massacre of the innocents. What can we learn from this horrific event?
Well, this tragedy is a crucial piece of the historical puzzle.
Okay.
Remember, Herod ordered the killing of all male children under 2 years old
No.
to try and eliminate Jesus.
Oh, wow.
And we know from historical records that Herod died in 4 BC, which means the massacre had to have happened sometime before his death.
So since Herod was still alive when Jesus was born, this narrows down the time frame even more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This evidence places Jesus' birth between 6 and 4 BC, which perfectly aligns with the timeline we've been building from the other clues.
It's incredible how all of these seemingly unconnected pieces of information are coming together.
It is.
Yeah.
And despite the cruelty of Herod's actions, it shows that even amidst terrible events, God's plan continued to unfold.
All right, we're on to the final clue. The beginning of Jesus' ministry. What insight can we gain from that?
Well, the Gospel of Luke tells us that Jesus was about 30 years old when he began his ministry.
Yeah.
This detail may seem simple, but it's significant.
Why is that detail so important?
Historical records tell us that Jesus began his ministry in the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar's reign,
Okay.
which historians estimate was around 29 or 30 AD.
So if we do the math again, working backward from the beginning of his ministry, that also points to a birth between 6 and 4 BC.
You got it. It confirms everything we've seen so far.
Okay.
Plus, there's another layer here.
Okay.
In Jewish tradition, 30 was considered the age of full maturity, when a man was ready to take on spiritual responsibility.
So Jesus beginning his ministry at age 30 wasn't a coincidence. It aligned with cultural expectations, signifying he was ready to fulfill his purpose.
That's right.
Now, let's look at all 7 clues.
Yeah.
Based on what we've explored, when do you think Jesus was most likely born? It seems like all signs point to September or October of 5 BC.
That's right. It fits with the historical and biblical evidence we've examined, making it the most likely time frame for Jesus' birth.
That's fascinating, especially since it contradicts the traditional belief of a December 25th birth. But if Jesus was actually born in 5 BC, wouldn't that mean the year we call 1 AD is off by a few years?
Yeah, that's a great point. And it comes down to a miscalculation made centuries after Jesus lived. A monk named Dionysius Exiguus in the 6th century was creating a calendar based around the year of Christ's birth.
Creating a calendar around such a momentous event is a big task. What went wrong?
Well, Dionysius didn't have all the historical information we have today, especially about Herod's death. And he also didn't include a year 0 in his system, so the calendar jumped straight from 1 BC to 1 AD. That further skewed the timeline.
So even though the calendar might be off by a few years, it still shows how significantly Jesus' birth impacted history. But if December 25th isn't the actual date, how did it become the day we celebrate Christmas?
There are a few historical and cultural reasons for that. In the early days of Christianity, they didn't focus much on celebrating Jesus' birth. The emphasis was more on his death and resurrection.
That makes sense considering those events are fundamental to the Christian faith.
Exactly. It wasn't until the 4th century that December 25th likely became the date for Christmas. This was a time when the Roman Empire was undergoing significant changes and Christianity was becoming more widespread.
Was this date a random choice, or is there a reason behind it?
It's not entirely random. December 25th coincides with the winter solstice, a time of year celebrated by many cultures long before Christianity. The Romans had a festival called Sol Invictus, celebrating the sun's rebirth after the shortest days of the year.
So the symbolism of the winter solstice, with light overcoming darkness, could be seen as aligning with the Christian message of Jesus as the light of the world.
Precisely. Choosing a date that coincided with existing celebrations likely helped people transition to Christianity because it allowed them to connect familiar traditions with their new faith. It's interesting to see how cultural and religious practices blended together throughout history.
It reminds us that even traditions we consider fixed, like Christmas, have evolved and been shaped by many factors over time. It's like what we saw with the calendar, another human-made system that is constantly being revised as we learn new things. But moving beyond the historical and cultural aspects, we need to talk about the true meaning behind Christmas. After all, the specific date doesn't really matter as much as what the event represents, right?
That's the key takeaway, isn't it? The reason for celebrating Christmas goes far beyond the date or the festivities. It's about the incarnation, remarkable event of God becoming human in the form of Jesus.
It's a powerful message that reaches across cultural boundaries and speaks to something deep within us.
Absolutely. It's something to reflect on no matter when we choose to celebrate. The true meaning of Christmas lies in the impact of Jesus' birth, the incarnation, and what it means for each of us personally.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes. We've challenged the December 25th date and used clues from the Bible and history to create a more accurate timeline. But even more than that, we've explored what the incarnation means, which has been incredibly insightful.
It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it? It shows how the Bible can offer more than just religious perspectives. It can also give us historical clues. And what's amazing is how even the seemingly insignificant details, a census, a priest serving in the temple, shepherds tending their flocks, become important clues when you look closely.
It's like a detective novel where every detail matters. So to recap what we've learned, we started with the census, suggesting a time frame of spring or fall for Jesus' birth. Then we looked at the connection to John the Baptist's father, Zechariah, whose temple service gave us a more precise window for Jesus' conception and birth.
Don't forget the significance of Jewish festivals. The idea that Jesus might have been born during the Feast of Tabernacles adds another layer of meaning to the story.
And then there was that detail about the shepherds tending their flocks at night, further suggesting Jesus wasn't born during the harsh winter months.
We also talked about the mysterious Star of Bethlehem, a celestial guide leading the Magi to the newborn king. We might never know what it really was, but we know it served as a divine sign.
Then we explored the horrific event of Herod's massacre of the innocents. Though a tragic event, it helped us narrow down the time of Jesus' birth based on when Herod died.
Finally, we looked at the detail about Jesus being about 30 years old when his ministry began. This, together with historical records, confirmed the timeline we have been building.
The way all these pieces fit together is amazing. It's like a perfectly crafted puzzle. But we also uncovered a discrepancy with the year 1 AD, which turned out to be a miscalculation made centuries later.
Yes, poor Dionysius tried to create a calendar based on the year of Christ's birth, but he didn't quite get it right.
Well, everybody makes mistakes, right? It just shows that even systems that seem set in stone, like our calendar, are creations of humans and can be adjusted as we learn more.
And speaking of rethinking things, we also explored how December 25th became the chosen date for Christmas.
It turns out it has more to do with cultural and historical factors than biblical accuracy.
The link between the winter solstice and the Roman festival of Sol Invictus is particularly fascinating. It shows how, as Christianity spread, it often adapted and incorporated existing traditions.
It's a blend of pagan celebrations with Christian beliefs. It seems like so many of our long-held traditions have evolved and been shaped by different influences over time.
Exactly. And amidst all the historical and cultural analysis, let's not lose sight of the essence of Christmas.
You're right. The true meaning goes beyond the date or the festivities.
It's about the incarnation, the profound mystery of God becoming flesh in the form of Jesus.
It's the ultimate act of love, a divine connection to humanity offering salvation and hope. That's a message that speaks to everyone, regardless of their background.
It truly is, and that message is something worth reflecting on every day, not just during the Christmas season.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the real date of Jesus' birth, what should we take away from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we should approach our faith and even all aspects of our lives with curiosity and a willingness to question what we think we know. Don't just accept things at face value, dig deeper, ask questions, and explore different perspectives.
You're right. Embrace that curiosity and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Who knows what truth you might discover along the way?
This deep dive reminds us that familiar stories often have hidden depths waiting to be uncovered, and the pursuit of knowledge and understanding is always a worthwhile journey.
So, as we conclude, we leave you with one final thought to consider.
Imagine going back in time, beyond the traditions and dates, and witnessing the birth of Jesus. What would it have been like to experience that moment when the divine entered human history?
Wow, that's a powerful image.
It is. It invites us to connect with the raw, unfiltered essence of the Christmas story, stripped of all the extra layers added over the centuries, to encounter the mystery with a sense of wonder and awe.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's a reminder that the power of the Christmas story lies not just in its historical or cultural significance, but in its ability to touch our hearts and change our lives.
It's a story that continues to resonate across time and space, offering hope and inspiration to countless people worldwide. And that, my friend, is something truly worth celebrating.
Well, that concludes our deep dive into the true date of Jesus' birth. We hope you've enjoyed this exploration and learned something new along the way.
And we encourage you to continue thinking about the questions we've raised. Keep digging into the mysteries of faith and history, and always seek the truth with an open mind and a receptive heart.
Thank you for joining us. It's been fascinating, right? Exploring these clues that challenge that traditional December 25th date
It really has.
and point to a different time of year for Jesus' birth.
Yeah, and what we've learned today reminds us that exploring these questions, it isn't about undermining traditions,
Right.
but about deepening our understanding of history and faith.
You're absolutely right. The real significance lies in the meaning of Jesus' birth and the impact it continues to have on the world.
Exactly. You know, it's a reminder that even in ancient stories, there's always more to discover, more layers of meaning to uncover, more connections to make.
I think that's a great takeaway for anyone, no matter what you're interested in, whether you're digging into ancient texts or historical mysteries, or even just curious about the world around you. Keep that spirit of exploration alive.
Absolutely. The more we learn, the more we realize how much there is still to uncover.
So keep asking those questions, keep searching for answers, and keep diving deep into the unknown.
And remember, the journey is just as important as the destination.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.